Yeah, so we were thinking like that we structure our talk a little bit.
Yeah.
And the first thing that we want to talk about is like what equipment to check out wing foiling, and how can you start. So what did you do, and what are your learnings from your first experience? Because you didn't do too much research, right? You
No,
just
really, for the first times I went out, and I like to do this for multiple reasons. Like, because I like to get. So what I mean is, I like to not go in by doing 10 hours of research on YouTube and then take the equipment and try
hmm
something for the first
hmm
time. I like to just go and try it with the very basic knowledge, mainly to get kind of my own feel for it. Because sometimes
hmm
people do give good tips, but sometimes those tips are too advanced, or other
hmm
people give tips, but they don't focus on. And I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying like they don't focus on. For example, okay, yeah, my board is very specific to this, and someone else might
hmm
be using another board, so I shouldn't give this tip because it might confuse someone. They just give tips, and because that's what they want to do. They want to help. They want to give as many tips as they can. So I like to take my own experience first, and then when I have a difficulty somewhere, like find my own difficulties, and when I have a difficulty, I'll go and I'll like, okay, yeah, this is my problem. So who is talking about this problem, and I go and find a
hmm
solution to it. And also
hmm
because I think it's kind of fun,
yeah.
to not know everything before you go in, and less frustrating that you're like, oh, they told me to do this and I can't do it. Yeah, sometimes you can't do it because it's your first go, obviously.
hmm hmm
So I think that's why I didn't research it. I think some people should do more research than I did to go in, obviously. But talking about equipment, like you asked, I didn't have the best opportunity to kind of choose because I didn't order my own equipment. I
yeah.
just borrowed them from somewhere here on the island that someone had
Uh-huh.
a set, and I took it. And it's a RRD, like you'll see on my Instagram. It's an RRD 122-liter board and a 5 meter
hmm
wing.
hmm
Of course, if you want my advice on what to use for the first time, I think the big board is perfect, right? Like a big
hmm
board is good. It's easy. It will help out. If you have water sports experience, so if you're like a windsurfer, a kite surfer, a surfer, whatever, I think like me, you can go directly onto the foil board. So this 122-liter. But
hmm
a tip, advice I saw before I even went on was everybody was saying go on a sub first.
hmm
And I think for someone that has very little or no water sports experience, I think this would be a good step to kind of go on a
hmm
sub first, mainly because these foil boards, although they're big and they're floaty and 120, well, like 120 liters is quite big,
hmm
they're compact, so they don't
hmm
feel that stable. It's not like you would stand on a sub board.
yeah.
So the big board, I think it's a good thing
Yeah.
for sure. The wing, it really depends on the way.
Maybe
Yeah,
let me add something to the board, because also heard that a lot, that you should go first on the sub. I don't totally agree with it, because it totally depends on your sub. Because I tried it actually, because my wing arrived here before my board arrived, so I was like, I have to try it, and I borrowed a sub. I borrowed multiple subs actually, like inflatable, and because I don't have these big SUPs, actually I don't own them, so I had a big inflatable, a big hard board, sub, and it was more unstable than on the wingfoil board in my next session,
yeah,
because
yeah. I guess
I think because of the foil is kind of, like pretending or preventing you from kipping
yeah, it's like a
too
huge,
much.
huge fin, basically.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
and
guess you're right.
I couldn't go upwind on a sub. I could immediately go upwind on the foil board, just planing, So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
my 2 cents.
Well, like I said, I haven't tried this up, but I'm thinking like in general a bigger board. So, for example, maybe if I was on my windsurf station, right, when I
Yeah,
first tried it,
yeah,
like let's say it's summer and I'm teaching someone how to wing foil, I would
yeah,
maybe even just put them on the big windsurf beginner boards that they have a
yeah,
center board and they have a normal fin and they're like 200 liters. You just
yeah.
want something big and floaty to kind of
Yes.
get the feeling on the water. Of course, if you have, I think personally, because I didn't find it that hard, I think if you have any sort of balance,
Mm-hmm.
you can just go straight on a foil board, as
Mm-hmm.
long as your conditions are not too rough, right? I
Yeah.
think the sub is kind of for people that really don't have any experience, have bad balance, or are just feeling
Mm-hmm.
unsafe. But
Yeah.
again, like you said, I think you are right. A sub should be a stable, floaty sub, not
Mm-hmm.
not any. like maybe bad design or just race style SUP or just something you randomly find. Make sure it is something big and floaty and easy to stand on. That's the point, being easy to stand on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the board, I like a big board is good. But I did find also, I forgot to mention before that already, like on your third, fourth session for me, I found that I already want a smaller board. Like while I'm riding, I feel like, oh, I'd like a smaller board. So I think if you're kind of buying for yourself, maybe like something you want to keep, you probably don't want to go for the biggest you can find immediately. Maybe just make it harder on yourself in the beginning and have something that you might want to use later on. It really depends on the situation of every person. I think the best is if you can find somewhere to borrow or rent, or because I think you want to drop down on the liters quite fast. It's quite a fast progression.
Yeah. My advice would be don't drop down too much, because I'm still on my 105 liter board. I'm 78 kilos, something like that. So I still enjoy the 100 liter category, so to say, maybe even a little bit more, like 105, 110. It also depends on the shape, like, because I know the pocket rockets that you're riding, and that one feels a little bit bulkier, as a beluga, for instance. But so don't drop down too much, because I have a friend who went straight on an 80 liter board, and that's too little. His progression made in 3 months is a progression I had in 3 days.
Yeah, I think when I say drop down, I mean like from 120 to like 100 or like 110, something like that. Maybe just even I don't mind the volume that much, because volume is always good, but maybe a sharper shape, something a little bit more compact. I think that's the bigger difference. So yeah, it does depend a lot on the board. So for sure, if someone is trying to go for the first time, just get some advice from someone that knows. Even better if it's someone is not trying to just sell you something, and they actually want to help you. And but I think the best opportunity is if you find somewhere that rents them, or you can kind of test out to just go down and then buy yourself something you find comfortable. But I think a big board to start for sure is good. And I think also it's not a bad thing to have a big board for the really light winds, because I think for like quite flat conditions and really light winds, a big board can help as well. If you're not obviously, don't look at someone like this pros now, like Balsmuller. It's like crazy guy that goes out on a 58 liter or something in 7 knots. Okay, this is different category completely. We're talking about normal people,
Exactly.
So I think a big board is a good thing to have, but I did find that I want to progress quite fast. So
got it.
Renting, probably the best. Also, what else? For the wing, it depends on the wind, I guess. But my advice for the wing that I kind of understood again on the third, fourth, or fifth session is like, I wouldn't want a bigger wing than my 5. Like even when the wind is a bit too light, I'd rather pump a lot than have a bigger wing, because already the 5 is kind of on my limit of what feels comfortable to kind of hold it without it being so huge that it touches the water and gets in the way. So I think a lot of people might be like, oh, I want to ride in like 6, 7, up to 10 knots only, so I'll get a 6 or 7 meter wing. You could do that, but I think a smaller wing is much more comfortable to actually be able to pump with. And once you get yourself up, you don't need a bigger one than a 5. So I would recommend, like, don't go. Basically, my main advice on the actual wing is don't go too big, don't go too crazy, unless you're willing to buy the whole line, 7, 6, 5, 4. So don't go too crazy on the wing. I think it's more important to learn how to control it and pump it than to actually just have pure power in the wing. But the biggest problem, I would say for me, not really a problem, but the biggest disadvantage I had, I think the actual foil I'm using is not that big. And like I said, I don't know much about foiling. So when I asked around also, and then I researched after the first 2 goes, because my first 2 sessions were pretty hard, I can talk about that in a minute if you want, because they were because of the conditions mostly. But I found out my wing is like the front wing of my foil is like 1,582. And although it still feels quite easy, it's quite a good one now that I got used to it. I'm not dissing the fin or anything, but I think a bigger front wing would help much more for the conditions that I want it in, to like light wind and getting up faster. But that's what they gave me, that's what I had, and that's what I used. So it's really, I didn't have much choice there. But I think, and after a little bit of research, the best size is around the 2,000 front wing, or even bigger if you want it for lighter winds, or just for like really light winds. But I think the 2,000 is something that can go in light winds, and you can also progress a lot on, and you keep it for kind of always. You won't be like, oh, now I want a smaller wing and I have to buy a smaller foil wing. I think a 2,000 would be something perfect, but 2,500 is probably the best to maybe start on for the first time. Basically, the bigger the wing, the easier you'd get up, I guess, and it might even help when we're going back to talking about having a smaller board. I think it kind of compensates for having a smaller board if you do start with one. But again, I'm no pro in this, so definitely anybody that's going for the first time to try research into it if you're looking to actually buy your own, and you don't have the opportunity to just test a load of things. But I think around 2,000 is good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know the Roberto Ricci foil that you're riding because I also own one, and it's like 1,500 something, but it feels like, I would say it's comparable to a 1,800 wing. I don't know why. It's because of the shape, so it feels still quite easy. But I didn't learn on it, and you are really good that you learned wing foiling on that one. For me, it was too much.
Well, like I said, when you take away a person's options, they just go with what they have. So that's about it. But I think it's a good foil in the fact that, like you said, it feels bigger than it is. But if you are going to choose something and you have the opportunity, definitely just go for a bigger front wing on your foil. This will make it much, much easier and much better for light wind, obviously. But like I said, I mean, the main difficulty for me wasn't even the foil, I would say. When it comes to actually riding, it was the conditions I had on my first 1 or 2 attempts. And that was because, like you said, you had the equipment there. So you were just like, okay, let's get out on the water.
Let's talk about that. So, I mean, we know something about your equipment. We know something about what would probably have made your life easier. So let's talk about your first session.
Get down.